So I'm wondering, as so many people are listening in those nooks and crannies across America, how many of you are good on the phone? As much as we live in an internet era, and there are even some people who barely pick up the phone, how important is it to have those phone conversations? How important are phone skills? I personally think very, very important. Joined now by Gail Goodman. She knows all about that. She's an expert on phone skills. Hey, Gail, how are you?
I'm good, Kate. How are you?
Excellent. You heard what I said. I think no matter what your age group, and we're going to talk about younger people and how the phone really trips them up, but I still believe that there is something about connecting with somebody on the phone, no matter what it is that you do for a living, and reaching out and being able to have that phone conversation that can set you apart from people who are never even reaching out to the other person other than through texts or emails or whatnot. Do you think that's true?
I absolutely agree with you. I think that while we'll all agree that the technology has made life a lot easier in many, many ways, there is a dehumanization of relationships. And having been in sales for over 30 years of my life, I can tell you that most interaction happens because people like you. It's not just that you have the best price for the best product. People do want to do business with people that they like and feel a connection to. And I think that there's a lot lost in just texting and emailing because you lose inflection, which in face-to-face conversation is less, but over the phone, it's like 80% of what you say.
Yeah, I so agree with that. I mean, I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it in people around me. I know that absolutely to be true. What is the major, where do people mostly have trouble with the phone? Is it the introduction? Is it getting through the gatekeeper? Is it, what is it that trips people up when they're talking to someone they don't know well?
I think it's a combination of all those things, but I think what trips people up the most is the perception that they're not doing it right and they think they're sounding stupid. And that very distinct feeling of they're not handling it well, and then, of course, the outcome isn't successful in one way or another, starts to create a downward spiral. So I think that part of phone training is not only teaching people exactly what you said, how to start at the beginning, how to get past the gatekeeper, how to keep the interaction going, how to handle objections, blah, 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 blah. It's also having a realistic expectation of what are the percentages of time when you should have a yes, and what is a reasonable percentage of time should you have a no. And if you don't know the numbers, you think you're doing it wrong more often than you might actually be doing it wrong.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because what I've found is even when I've hired people or when it's been the other way around, the more that you're in there, sometimes the best, I think, sometimes the best jobs or best work that you acquire, it takes time. It's not, boom, I call somebody and within 1 week we have a deal and we're closed, or 2 weeks. But I think that a lot of people, Gail, I think you're right, put that on their shoulders that, man, I must be brutal on the phone because I'm not closing these deals. I'm not getting things done right away.
The other big problem, Kate, is that with all due respect for people who are the managers of people that are struggling on the phone, if you don't know how to teach them, if you don't realize they even need training, I mean, not everybody comes to you fully trained properly for the very business and all the little quirks that your business has, and yet they expect people, because the interesting thing about phone skills is it's a talking activity, and we all know how to talk. So the assumption is, and this happened to me, which is part of why I'm a trainer, she's a talker, she's got an outgoing sales personality, she knows how to sell, and I didn't. And if it wasn't for the number of failures that just smacked my manager in the face, like, this woman is totally not knowing what she's doing, she wasn't willing to pay to have me train. The minute I was trained, I became a great salesperson, and my mentor became my lifeline. But people don't come knowing exactly what you think they need to do for your business. Now, the other problem is a lot of people that are managing don't know how to teach what they know how to do, and that's the problem.
Oh, so you teach that. That's part of what you teach too, right? Is it partially because sometimes It's sort of like that elevator speech. Somebody turns to you in the elevator, Gail, and you know this, and they say, well, Gail, what do you do? Phone teacher. What's that? Is it about knowing the ins and outs of whatever it is you're selling, including yourself?
Well, it's knowing the ins and outs of making the conversation work for you on the phone with the absence of body language. The first thing people have to realize is that a phone interaction is not the same as a face-to-face interaction. Because you and I are on the phone now, I don't see you, you don't see me. That changes how you hear what I'm saying. So in normal human communication, body language is anywhere between 60 and 70%, depending on which expert you want to quote. But the rest of it, which is words and inflection, is a very small percentage. When you're on the phone, words and inflection are everything. It's 100% of what you're saying. And so if you mess up the words, it's not good. And if you mess up the inflection, it's not good. And most people don't realize what they're saying over the phone.
Yeah. Boy, so true. And certainly you can check out Gail Goodman at thePhoneTeacher.com. She's got all kinds of tips. You got to give us a few tips here. Give us a couple of your top reasons why people fail when they're on the phone prospecting, Gail.
The first thing that is a problem is that people don't plan what they're saying in advance. Somehow, if you're a good talker, you think you can ad-lib your way into this, when in fact, that's not true. The other thing is you absolutely have to role play and practice, and the easiest way to do that is in a real-life situation where you literally call somebody who's in a position to be your teacher or your listener, and you role play with them as if they are the client. And that person has to know what to be listening for. When you called me on the phone and your assistant said, I'm looking for Gail Goodman, my first thought was, who trained him to say that? Because that's better than saying, is this Gail? And I thought, I wonder if somebody trained him to say that, or does he instinctively do that? The problem is, it's not supposed to be instinctive. Don't rely on your ability to talk when it is a sales business conversation. You got to plan it, you got to role play it, you got to practice it. And take criticism with, the spirit in which it's meant, which is everybody in your company is trying to make you the best you could be because everybody is on the same page. Everybody wants success.
Right.
And try not to be sensitive about people critiquing the way you sound.
Mm-hmm. So remember that I'm looking for, because you're right, if you say, is this so-and-so, it sounds casual.
Well, I'll give you one very big tip over the phone. Questions have to be very carefully and strategically used over the phone because casual questions on the phone, people don't realize, are perceived of as a pop quiz.
I wouldn't have known that.
When you say, how are you, to a stranger, they're thinking, what do you care?
Right. So that's something to keep in mind.
You have to be careful about how are you. If it's a busy person, it's better to say, hi, this is Gail Goodman. I know you're busy, so I'll be brief, and just keep talking than to waste time with how are you to a stranger because you don't really care about the answer.
That's a great tip. I know you're busy, so I'll be brief. What is it, you think of the future generations, and we talked a little bit about technology at the beginning, and like you, I believe that you still are going to have that conversation over the phone, and you know how to have it. The skills of the younger set, I think, are eroding because they don't do it. Do you find the same thing?
I totally agree with that. But the interesting thing, there's an intergenerational divide, and I think that the Gen Xers are caught in the middle because they kind of straddle the baby boomers and the millennials. I think that millennials bring a lot of amazing talent to the table, and they bring a comfort with technology that frequently their older boss does not necessarily have. And if we can all agree that everybody brings something to the table that's important, that will help. At the same time, when you hire a millennial and you want them to use the phone and they are not allowed to do customer service by email because you want them to call, you have to let them know right up front. And you have to train them. Shame on you if you say you got to get on the phone, they nod their heads at the interview because they desperately need the job, and then they go ahead and not use the phone. You got to train them.
Gail Goodman, what a delight to have you on PhoneTeacher.com. Thanks. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Kate.